Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Long Lens Podcast. This is the podcast where I answer questions from my filmmaking and YouTube community, and we just talk about all things filmmaking, cameras, YouTube. If you're new here, I do a Q&A at the beginning of each month, and I ask for questions on YouTube, Instagram, and Patreon. I always answer my Patreon questions first. This month, we don't have any questions from Patreon, but I do want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon members. All of these fine people support me on Patreon, so I just want to give you quick shout out because I am eternally stoked that you are believing in me enough to support me in any financial capacity. Tiffany Tate, the Vagabond Photographer, Andy Mulcaster, Will Bond, Gregors, Wiserecki, Joel Kimball, Matt Civis, Liz Gahn, Sun Valley Drive Music, Lyndon Labayan, 7 Note Mode, Nolan Natasha, Dylan McMurdy, Mohammed Al Kuhader, Sean Sebastian, Joe Cinematic 78, and Patrick Curtis. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to join them, you don't have to join the paid tier. There is a free tier that you can join as well. And I do release some videos that are for the free members, so you can support me in that way. There's a lot of goodies on Patreon. I've been uploading there for years. So if you join the paid tier, there's an entire backlog of videos that you can look at. Let's get into some housekeeping. As far as the gear that I'm using, I like to talk a little bit about the gear that I use on each episode. This episode, if you're watching on YouTube and not just listening, you'll notice is a little softer and not as crisp as a lot of my other episodes. I am shooting on my old Panasonic GH3, so it looks a little less polished than my main videos. But so yeah, using that, my Shure MV7, I actually have a little monitor that I'm using just to make sure that I'm in focus, which let me double check. Yeah, I'm in focus. Using my little wireless focus remote on the GH3 just to set my focus, 25mm f1.7. Yeah, using a little XLR preamp to get it into my GH3. That's the gear we're using. Got some lights going on. This GH3 really likes a lot of light, so you can't really, it's not really a low light camera. So got to make sure you have enough light hitting you in order for it to look halfway decent. So this month, again, we don't have any questions on Patreon, but typically I answer those questions first. Another way that you can, send me questions and actually hear your voice on this podcast is sending me a SpeakPipe message. And I actually have one right now that I'm going to play for you. It's from my buddy Matthew.
Yo, Nigel, it's Matthew Daniel. Curious to hear your thoughts. What would you like to see in a Lumix S9 Mark II? What features or what physicalities would you want from that camera? And also, what pancake lenses are you hoping for the L mount system?
It's a good question, Matthew. Matthew and I were actually talking about this a couple days ago, but when it comes to physical things for the S9, it's a pretty easy answer for me. I just want a viewfinder. I'd like a viewfinder on the new S9. That way I could just see myself using it a lot more than I do now. I still use my S9, but it's mostly just like a little auxiliary video camera. I'm not necessarily, putting a camera strap on it and going out on like photo walks or something. It doesn't inspire me as a photo camera, but if I had a viewfinder, it definitely would. So viewfinder is one main thing. I'd like the ports to be on the left side. That would just help with, if I ever wanted to rig it. Having the ports on the grip side is a little annoying. And then I would like to actually have the SD card on the grip side instead. Kind of like most cameras, you have the SD card on the grip. You can get to it without having to open the battery compartment. And then maybe a hot shoe if I ever wanted to, fire a flash off of my camera. I kind of wish Lumix had more hot shoe accessories for like video shooters like Sony does, where, they have like wireless mics and different, microphones that you can just plug into the hot shoe and not have to use a cord. It'd be cool if Lumix, made their own microphone that you could just plug in and it communicated with the camera through the hot shoe instead of having to use the mic jack. So yeah, that's what I would like in the new S9. As far as pancake lenses, I know that like full frame mirrorless pancake lenses are a little hard to manufacture, but still I would like an actual pancake lens, like a 28mm f2.8 and maybe like a 40mm f2.8. Those would be my two go-to pancake lenses if they were available. And again, Lumix doesn't have to make them. TT Artisan, 7 Artisan, Laowa, I don't care which company makes it. I would just like some small pancake style lenses for my S9 and all Lumix cameras. I'm sure people that shoot on like the Sigma FP and the BF would like a nice small little. The weird thing is I could see myself using like a Ricoh GR, and people would, probably say, "Hey Nigel, I thought you needed a viewfinder in order for it to be a photo camera." It's not always true, right? Like the Ricoh GR, you can shoot with one hand and you can pocket it. You can't pocket the S9, and the only way you can really pocket the S9 is if you like have a really small pancake lens on, but the only pancake lenses that are available are manual focus, and so you can't shoot the S9 with one hand. You have to use two hands to shoot it. So that's why I want small pancake lenses, so I can use it as a photo camera because it's small enough to fit in like a jacket pocket then. So that's my rant on the S9 and pancake lenses. Thanks for that question, Matthew. I hope that we see some pancake lenses in the future. Okay, and now we're going into the YouTube community page. I'm going to try to get through all these questions as quickly as I can. Question is, good morning. I saw you at the PDX Crusade and was wondering if you had any content coming from or about that event. Yes, you did see me there. I was hired to film event coverage. So I basically worked as a videographer there. And I do a lot of that type of work that I just don't ever really talk about on my channels because it's not really relevant to the type of content that I'm making on my YouTube channel. Even though I do a lot of videographer style gigs, that's just not necessarily what I talk about a lot on my YouTube channel. So yeah, I was hired to film a lot of event coverage over the 2 days that it happened. On Saturday, I filmed almost everything on my S5 IIX, and then Sunday I filmed on the S1 Mark II. And I didn't even bring my own SD cards, so I can't really show you any of the footage. My buddy Johnny put together a recap that you can see on Instagram, but they gave us SD cards, shot for a few hours, and then we'd kind of periodically switch out our SD cards and whatnot. And so yeah, I just kind of went there, shot, and then left. But it was a cool event, and I think we got a lot of really cool footage. All right, next question is, hi Nigel, do you think the Lumix G9 Mark I is still a good camera for video in 2025? Absolutely. I mean, I'm using a GH3, right? So you can use a lot of stuff to make videos. As far as professional videos, the original G9 is great. If I was looking for a legacy Lumix camera for video, I would go with the GH5. But if you found an original G9 for a really good deal, I'd say go for it. I mean, you can shoot 420 10-bit, 4K, still looks really good. I know a lot of wedding videographers that would buy that as like a C or a D cam just to throw up during the ceremony. So still a really good camera. So next question is future goals for your YouTube and your career. For YouTube, I think people can kind of see that I'm trying to like transition my second channel into being more of like my gear review, just kind of quick turnaround videos. And my main channel is more of like my cinematic reviews, cinematic videos, more artistic style videos over there. You may have noticed that I don't put any text in my main channel thumbnails. I don't do any of that. I save all of that for my second channel. So I'm trying to just separate them so that like I can make quick turnaround videos for my second channel and more polished videos on my main channel. As for my career, I mean, I'm still loving doing just, videographer type stuff and some more, cinematographer type stuff. But I'm not like, I try not to hold everything that I have with like closed hands. Like I try to hold it with open hands because I know it can be taken away super, super easily. But I'm always open to the idea of switching day jobs as far as like where my career is going. I'm always going to be doing YouTube and I'm always going to be doing stuff with video. But if I found a path that was more lucrative and I could provide better for my family, then yeah, I would totally go down that route. But right now, I'm kind of happy where I am. So next question is, if money and time were not an issue, what lens or set of lenses and camera combo would you pick for a documentary with a skeleton crew? Thanks in advance. That's kind of an interesting question because on one hand, you say if money and time were not an issue, but on the other hand, you say skeleton crew. Now, if money and time were an issue, I wouldn't have a skeleton crew. I would have like a full crew to help me out because I'd rather shoot a documentary on a GH5 and a 12-35 with a full crew than on a FX6 and 24-70 all by myself. So yeah, my first thought would be I would rather spend money on a crew, like a director, producer, sound person, than just try to do everything by myself. But if I was going to pick a camera, this might be kind of a unusual answer, but I would actually choose a GH7 with the two Leica zooms because that camera will never overheat on me, and I can use the XLR2 adapter for 32-bit float internally. So it'd be easier to get my audio in camera as opposed to having to do separate system stuff. So that's what I would go with, GH7 Leica zooms. Last question on YouTube is asking about the 20-60 and whether or not it's a good option for wide angles on the Lumix full frame. And I would say yes, the 20 to 60 is probably the cheapest and best option you can get as far as like a wide angle, something that's wider than 24 millimeters. It's really cheap. You can have, like, I'm pretty sure you can get it for under 250 in the used market. Because the only other options are like the Sigma 17 mil f4 and then the Lumix S 18 millimeter, which is like $900. That's the 1.8 option. There might be some other options from like Leica, but those are obviously going to be way more expensive. If you didn't need autofocus, you could look at some of the Chinese like manual focus lenses. I'm sure that there's some, some wide angle options available there. I actually have an old Vivitar 17 millimeter f3.5. This one's really good. So old vintage lenses, you can find, some wide angle options there. But yeah, I think that because the 20 to 60 is a kit lens, a lot of people sleep on it, but don't sleep on it. It's a really good lens. And for the price, I think it's definitely worth it. All right, so those were all the questions from YouTube. I do have a few from Instagram as well. And the first one is, do you think the GH6/GH7 could achieve the same look as the movie Weapons? Yeah, so I had to look it up, and it looks like Weapons was shot on the Alexa 35, which is the new camera from Arri. And they shot on a bunch of different lenses, including like the Canon K35s and some Kowa anamorphics. So technically, like if you're talking about like the same field of view, you could get the same field of view with a GH7 maybe and a speed booster. You can get the same field of view. That's a super 35 millimeter field of view. That's the same thing that you would see on an Alexa 35. Get similar type of lenses. You shoot an Arri Log C3. You're going to be very, very close to the Alexa 35. You're not going to have the same, dynamic range and color fidelity maybe and like, low light performance maybe, but you will get very, very close. So I would say yes, you could get a very similar look to the movie Weapons with something like a GH7. Next question is, what kind of tortilla is best based on your preference? If I'm doing burrito, then I want a flour tortilla. Street tacos, obviously, I want corn tortillas. Next question is from a skate background, fisheye or ultra wide rectilinear, and why? Yeah, if I'm doing skateboarding, action sports, or maybe like an artsy fashion commercial, then I'll probably choose fisheye. But for almost everything else, I would just want an ultra wide without the distortion because I just think that it looks better in most situations. Again, fisheyes do have their place, but I think I'd probably get more use out of an ultra wide than I would a fisheye because again, I would only be using those for action sports or highly stylized shots. Frugal budget filmmaking kit, everything from cameras, computers, if you were just starting out. Yeah, so if I'm trying to do it like the cheapest possible, I would still go for a MacBook Pro, probably the M1 MacBook Pro. Those can be had for pretty cheap, I'm sure. I use the M1 Max, but that might, even though it's it's going on 4 or 5 years, it's a great laptop, but they're not, the cheapest thing you can get there. I think that the M1 MacBook Pro is probably the cheapest. I'd get DaVinci Resolve, and then I'd go with either a Pocket 4K brand new for $1,000, and then I'd get the studio version of DaVinci, or I would go with the GH5 and like 12 to 35. If I was doing strictly YouTube stuff, maybe I would switch up my answer to like a Canon PowerShot V1 or like a Sony ZV-E10 or something like that. But if I was gonna, try to be making money with my camera doing, corporate video shoots, I would choose like a Pocket 4K or a GH5. And then I'd invest in some lights, Godox, Nanlite, aperture, newer GVM. There's a lot of good ones out there that you can get. I'd get a 60 watt for my first light. I'd get a good tripod. Don't skimp on your tripods. And I would just get some mics from Comica, like the VM30 or the VM40 as a shotgun, and then maybe the Boom Max as my wireless kit. And then you could probably do a lot with that setup. And that would be a really good, frugal way to start out, I think. This is a good one. How do you keep yourself motivated to create YouTube content on top of client work? The way that I do it is I think that a lot of people who are working professionals and are also trying to start YouTube channels, what happens is they pour so much of themselves into their freelance work or their production company work because they have to. That's how they make their money. And so then they don't have a lot of bandwidth left for making YouTube videos. For me, since YouTube brings in about half my income, I can devote more time to YouTube specifically. And so what I do is I try to take on higher volume of like videographer style gigs where I'm just showing up with my camera, shooting and leaving. So like cam op stuff. And that leaves me a lot more bandwidth to make my YouTube videos. So that's how I kind of balance the freelance and YouTube life. Is I don't take on projects that are going to take the entire month and take so much out of me to where the idea of making a YouTube video is just super daunting. So that's how I do it. I know it's not realistic for everybody, but if you really want to make YouTube a thing, you have to kind of prioritize it a little bit more. And the only way to do that is if you have less time-consuming client projects, I guess. So the last question is, any good resources or tips on learning how to expose the image to make it look more cinematic? Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like a lot of people probably need to learn lighting more than they realize. I'm still one of those people. So I've learned like what I know right now from, people like Patrick O'Sullivan over at The Wandering DP. I know a lot of people watch him. He's a really good resource. Spencer Sakurai, and a lot of his earlier videos are really good where he does like scene recreations with the Pocket 4K. Man, I learned a lot about lighting from those videos from Spencer. So yeah, there's a lot of people on YouTube that are going to teach you how to like light for YouTube. And I would avoid those. Like I've made those videos too. I'm not saying that I'm not one of those people, but try to look for people who are actually doing the type of work that you want to be doing, and then see how they light their stuff. And if they have tutorials, it's even better. But yeah, those are two people that I can definitely recommend, like Patrick O'Sullivan from The Wandering DP and Spencer Sakurai. Those are just the two main ones that come to my head first. But yeah, those are all the questions that we have for this month's podcast. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. Again, if you'd like to join me on Patreon, either the paid or the free tier, I'll have links in the description below. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.